Hi, this is PD at BurgZerg Arcade at BurgZergArcade.com, and this is tutorial 159. Well, you have to excuse me during this one. I'm coming down with a bit of a cold, so if my voice is a little raspier than normal, that's the reason why. Now, this tutorial here, I wanted to actually start exploring ways to examine your in-game objects, at least the ones that have to deal with your character. Some people have weapons that use multiple meshes, so the whole deactivating and activating the mesh isn't working for them. And then there's other things you might want to do for character customization, such as having different hairstyles for your character. And now, dragging and dropping each one of these different hairstyles into game and throwing them on your character, and getting them all lined up just right, and then saving it off, and then putting the next one in, making sure it's just right and everything else. It can be a little time consuming. So I'm going to create another level that allows us to actually automate some of this and basically give it a list of, let's stick with hairstyles for an example. Give it a list of hairstyles that we can just basically tab through with a little button and make all the adjustments we need that way. Now this can easily be switched over later and added to your character generation scene to give your character a unique look compared to everyone else's character. So let's go ahead and open up Unity. And I've gone ahead and created a new scene. Now this scene I've just called Equipment Test. And I do have a few things in the background here. It's just mostly for visual. It's just part of a dungeon that I was working on. So let's just go ahead and let's create an empty game object. There we go. And let's position it. I'm going to throw it right about here. And I'm going to set my Y to 0. And I'm going to rename this to character mount, and this is where I want my character to spawn. Now I have two different meshes for my character. I have a fat male and a muscular male. So I'm setting up where I want this mesh to spawn for us to look at. So I'll call it character mount. And I'm just going to quickly switch over to my game view. And I'm actually just going to move this out a bit so I can see both at the same time. There we go. So it's about where I want it. I probably want them out just a little bit more, but you'll want to position that. Now let's go ahead and create a new script. And I'll call this script. So I'm just going to throw it in the default folders for now. It's C#, and I'll call this script changing room. And then I'm just going to open that up into MonoDevelop. And I'll change the name here. I'm going to take this script and drag it right onto our character mount. And I didn't spell it the same, so let me just check here. Changing room. Changing room. It might not have compiled. So let me just try that again. And there we go. It's on there. And I'm going to create another script here. And I'll just call this script character asset. And I'll open this one up in MonoDevelop. And make sure its name's changed. Now the reason why I'm creating a new script called character assets is I want this script to hold a reference to all the different customizable parts that we can put on our character. Now previously I had been exploring using our resources folder, which I've actually gotten rid of now. And the reason why I'm doing this is I found that the more customizable parts I had, and the more I was adding them to the resources folder, since I'm targeting a web build, it made that first level where you're actually playing the game quite large, and the actual Unity 3D download that you get for playing on a web player was quite a bit larger. So I found this way here to be a little bit lighter, a little bit smaller in file size. So I'm going to be slowly switching over to using this script to contain all of our assets instead of using the resources folder. So let's go ahead and make another empty game object. And I'm just going to call this one Character Asset Manager. And I'm going to turn this into a prefab. So let's go ahead and attach that script we just created. Character Asset. And I'm going to go into my Prefabs folder and down to Managers. And I'm going to create another prefab down here. And I'm just going to call it Character Asset Manager. And I'll just simply drag that on. There we go. As you can see, it's connected. It's blue. The name is blue, and the little box turned blue. So let's go back into our scripts. And I'm going to go to the awake function. So void awake. And I'm just going to add don't destroy on load. And I'm just going to pass in this, meaning this game object. And we'll save that off. Now let's go ahead and right away create an array to hold all the different meshes for our character as far as the actual base character itself. So for me, this is going to be my fat male and my muscular male. So I'm going to make these public because you're going to want them exposed in the inspector. And I'll just make them game objects. And I'm going to call this character mesh. And I want proper camel casing. And since it's an array, make sure you actually put the square brackets in. I'll save that off. I'm going to select my asset manager here. And there we go. It popped up. So I have 2. So I'm going to create a size of 2. And I've already gone ahead and created a couple of prefabs for my character. So let me just scroll down to my player models. And all it is just our models set up the way we have them for in-game use. So they do have animations attached to them, although for the dressing room you really don't need them. That's pretty much it. I've attached the player character script, which, well, let's just make one. I'll just drag it into the scene. Let's just take the fat guy, we'll drag him in. And I've gone ahead and added our hack and slash player character stats. And that's all I've done. Everything else is just what you get from including it in from your 3D package. So I'll just delete the fat guy. And I'll select my character asset manager, and I'll just drag these 2 models up here that I'm going to use. I'm just going to hit save, and I'm actually going to select my character asset manager, because if we actually looked at the manager that we have here now, since we've changed a few things here, sometimes it doesn't actually save over here. So by selecting it and hitting apply, if you come down here and select it again, you'll notice it made the updates for you. And since I want these models to be available potentially in other levels, I want to keep updating this as I keep working on it. So let's head back into our scripts, and I'm going to create a new function down here. I'll make it private. It does not return anything, and I'm going to call this Instantiate Character Model. And it doesn't take any parameters. And all I want this function to do is just take the index of the character that we want based on our little array that we've set up over here and instantiate that character and then put it underneath our character mount. So let's go ahead and do that. First, we're going to want a way to figure out what model we want to instantiate. So we're going to come up here and create a private variable for that. It'll be type int, and I'm just going to call this char model index. And I'm just going to start that off equaling 0. And then when the script first starts off, I'm going to want to call this function here so that we always start off with the first model. So let's start off by creating a game object. And I'm just going to call this model. And it's going to be equal to instantiate. Now we'll want to get the reference to the changing room script. Oh, so not the changing. I've actually been putting this in the wrong script. Let's go ahead and copy our instantiate method. This was supposed to be in here. And we'll also copy this private variable. I'll paste that right in there. We want the do not destroy here, but in the start method, we actually want it over here. And I'll just quickly save this off. And there we go. So now we want to be able to instantiate some game object, which we're going to be getting from this array. And then we'll want to spawn it at some point. So here, let's just quickly template this out. So we're going to want to instantiate some prefab, some position, and we're actually just going to use quaternion identity. And it's not letting me type it in right now. I'm not sure if IntelliSense just isn't working, or if it could be because of bad variables here. But the sum position is easy. We want to spawn it underneath as a child of this game object, which of course we have set up to be called, I believe, character mount. Yeah, right here. So we want it to be a child of this. So that's pretty easy to get, because we can just say transform dot position, and the sum prefab. Well, we're going to have to get a reference to this script over here. So let's create a private variable over here for now. And it's going to be of type character asset. Later on, we'll want to move this to basically a major manager, which will control all the other smaller managers. But for now, we're just going to put it in here because we just want quick access to it. So character assets, and I'm just going to call it CA. And in our start function, we'll actually go and find it. So CA is equal to GameObject dot find, and we're going to just grab the name from here. So I'm just going to cut and paste it for now, and we'll say dot get component, and the component we want is character assets. I'm sorry, this is supposed to be singular. So we can save that off. Now the sum prefab, since we made this public over here, not only does that allow us to add stuff to it in the inspector, but we can actually call it directly from this script. So I'm going to change that sum prefab to it. So CA. Actually, let me just quickly save this off and restart my mono-develop. I seem to have lost IntelliSense. So I'll be right back. Alright, so it's back up and we have IntelliSense. So CA dot, I believe it's character mesh, and then we're going to pass in the index of where we're currently at, which I'm saving in this variable. I'll close this off. And then we should be able to get our quaternion identity in here. There we go. So we're also going to have to typecast this as GameObject because it returns an actual object, but we want it to be a game object. And then we're going to come down here and parent this model that we've just made to well, basically whatever the script is attached to. So we can do that by going model.transform.parent is equal to transform. So let's quickly save that off and see if we have any errors. And apparently we have a few. So the type, okay. Oh, nope, that wasn't the error I thought it was. So let's just click on it and see where it comes out. And I spelled position wrong. And it helps if I actually put it there. Oh, just to make sure, what I'd like to do, since now I have IntelliSense, is just use that. So that's saved off. Let's come over here, let it recompile, and all the errors are gone. So let's start it up, and we'll see what happens. We got a null reference. That's fine. Let's take a look at it. It's saying object reference not set to an instance of an object. So let's just take a look. So it's not finding our CA, and actually it's because we have our instantiate method called before we actually even try to go out and find it. So let's just move the instantiate down below it. I'm just going to save that off, and we'll head back into Unity, and let's just fire this back up. And there we go. Now we notice that he's not facing the camera, and I probably want to position him a little bit closer to the camera. The way I'm going to have him actually position the camera is I'm going to take our actual character mount, and I'm going to rotate it 180 degrees on the y-axis. So this makes the z-axis point this way instead of pointing the other way, at least the little arrow. And I'm going to come into my script, and right after I've parented it, I'm going to say model dot transform. I said dot transform dot rotation, and I'm going to set this equal to transform dot rotation. So what this does is it actually takes the rotation that we have assigned to our parent, which is going to be the mount point, and he sets the character's model rotation to that. So let's try that out. He should be facing forward, which he is not. Let me just go and make sure I saved it. I did not. And I'm actually going to move it a little bit closer as well. So let's move it up to about here, and I'll start it up. And he's now facing forward, but he's obviously too close. Let me just maximize this, and we'll take a quick peek at it. So this is my actual size that I'm going to have the player playing in the website. So that's actually a little too close. I'm going to move it back just a tad. I guess I should add a gizmo there, and that would help me actually position things. I want it back just a little bit more. So about there. And I also don't like that animation. I want him to start off with his idle animation. Now I could go ahead and go into our folder for our prefabs. Let me just close some of these down. And I put them down here in player models. And I could go ahead and just set the animation that I actually want to start on play and have it play automatically, but I've always had trouble with that. So I generally just like to script it. Now I'm going to do this just kind of like down and dirty. So I'm going to grab the model, because right now I'm just trying to get the basic functionality up. We can come through and clean this up a little bit later. So I'm going to grab the animation component of our model, and the animation I want to grab is whatever one you have set to idle. Now I know on this model it's called idle 1. At least this is the animation I want to apply. And I'm going to set its wrap mode to equal wrap mode.loop. So this animation is just going to keep playing over and over and over again. And then again, I'm going to grab this model. I'm going to grab its animation, and I'm going to set its play to be idle 1. So I'll just save that off, and I'm going to head back into Unity, and let's just fire it up and take a look. So there we go. We've got the first model being instantiated, and if I shrink this back down so it's not going full screen, I will take a look here at our character mount. We notice that we get a model underneath. The next tutorial will work on having it being able to cycle between the two different models, so we'll have to delete the old model and add the new one. But all in good time. I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye-bye.